Thank you very much for your invitation. Let me share my project PPT. Okay. All right. First of all, the title is too ambitious. So I'm trying to just share the Korean perspective on Christianity and media in terms of disinformation. Just briefly, you just introduced me, so the other things are not important. I studied in University of Edinburgh, and my thesis was about public theology and peace studies. And I tried to connect peace studies, theology, and media studies, focusing on photography. So this what I studied, and a few months ago I resigned from my previous job, but I used to work as a director of research at Christian Institute for the Study of Justice and Development, which is the Korean ecumenical institution, and currently teaching at several universities, focusing on Christianity, culture, and media studies. So thank you for inviting me here. Okay, why this information now? As you know, this information is not new concept, but in these days, it's a quite important concept. So I try to explain why we need to focus on this information in what context. Specifically, I'm talking about the Korean context. First of all, the definition of this information is false information deliberately and often covertly spread in order to influence public opinion or obscure the truth. Cambridge Dictionary says false information spread in order to deceive people. So what is important is it's about false information, but it has an intention to mislead somebody or some group or society. Compared to the disinformation, misinformation is also false information that is spread, but regardless of intent to mislead. So both are false information, but the intention is quite different. And why now should we consider on this information to what extent? I think it conceals truth, truth-seeking, and justice discourse. So it is harmless to our society. Secondly, it disrupts communication between individuals and groups in public sphere, which is quite important, foundational for the democracy. And thirdly, it incites conflict by increasing hate and discrimination. And fourthly, I think it's quite important too, Christians are sometimes not free from the threat of disinformation. So this is why we need to think about disinformation. So I'm gonna talk about three contexts why the concept of information become important. The first one is fake news, and the second one is media environment, and the third one is post-truth. You see, the fake news is a small social phenomenon, and media environment is more bigger, like a whole media industry and media literacy or media something like that. And then the biggest circle, there is a post-truth phenomenon. So I think it's all connected. So I'm trying to focus on three things. The first thing, as you all know, the term fake news was named in Oxford English Dictionary in 2016. When the Donald Trump ran as a candidate for the presidential candidacy. At the time, major legacy media or journalists in the US, they didn't like Donald Trump, didn't have interest in him, so they didn't write or report on him. So Donald Trump tried to use his, the social media like Twitter. So Neiman report, produced by Harvard University, they make the reports on Donald Trump and fake news. He used his social media very, very aggressively during the presidential election period between September 15 and to November 8. It's only 2 or 3 months. And then he produced a lot of fake news, liars, disinformation, something like that. So according to a journalist based on Toronto, he searched all the tweeters and reports and things like that. And then he counts the numbers of the fake news. And then Donald Trump lied 20 times a day in average using his social media or in public area. That's why the term fake news came out to the world. So as you know, there is a special fact-check institution only for the U.S. president. What he said, what he write, or what he posts on social media, everything is checking now. So that's the quite important thing. The second context is why the Donald Trump decided to use the social media, because it's powerful. Because the media environment is dramatically changed from mass media system to new media system. So what is new media? Means a new way of communication based on information technology, which enables instant, interactive, and international communication. So these days, we don't need telephone, because we can use smartphone. We don't need to travel. We can just connect through the Zoom link, online. So Taiwan, Korea, the other parts of the nation, all international is the same at the same time. So when we say new media, it includes different concepts in the below. So digital media, social media, online media, all are same in terms of under the new media, but they are slightly different. But the characteristic of each media is like digital media means you have to be original and then the other copy. But so analog society, you have only one original copy. But in the digital media, so in digital media society, you can have any copies as you want, because it multiplies. So there is no concept of the originality, something like that. The social media means in the past of the mass media system, there is a fixed role as speaker, as audience. You can change, you can replace. So I am talking and you are listening. That's the role. But in the social media system, everyone can speak and listen and share and produce and whatever you want to do. So everyone is multi-users in social system. So everyone can make anything you want to say. And then when you say online media, we just say we have extended words, like virtual words, but specifically online words. So World Wide Web, the Web 3.0, can actually make the global village. Actually, the term was made by the Marshall McLuhan. the media scholar of Canadian media scholar, but the term is different from now, but we are actually living in the real global village through the online media. So these systems are quite important because legacy media, mass media, one-directional communication, they need the long production period. So they put all efforts to make one news coverage, and then they have own filtering process. So fact checking is very fundamental and basic thing for the legacy media. But in the new media system, like alternative media, you can use social media. So everyone can say, make, share, or change, or something like that. So it's a multi-directional. The production time is short, and then weak and no fact-check system. So we just learned about the fascinating co-fact program. So thank you for that. I was very intrigued of that. And it was interesting because I used to work as a coordinator of the international conference for the Museum for Peace around 9 years ago. And the conference was held at the Nogunri Peace Museum. And then the Charles J. Henley, former journalist of the Associated Press, also the one who won the Pulitzer Prize, reporting on Nogunri incident. He came back to Korea and then gave the keynote speech about the role of the journalism and media. And then the title was A New Media War, which means not new media, a new media war. What it means is traditionally, the media had been a tool of the truth-seeking, just as he did. So he tried to find the evidence and what is the truth and truth-seeking. So at the society find the conclude what is the truth and justice and something like that, and truth and reconciliation. So when he won the Pulitzer Prize, and then everything settled up, and then the President Bill Clinton expresses his sorry to the incident to the Korean government, and then the history is set up. That's what he thought. And then in 2014, when he came back to Korea, no, I am not done yet. Every time, so many people try to make the false information, the disinformation about the Nogunri incident using the media, social media stuff. So we are facing the new media war right now. Why all these are happening now? To understand this situation, specifically the disinformation, is we need to think about post-truth phenomenon. Because of the time, I'll be quick. Post-truth as an adjective relating to or denoting circumstance in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal beliefs. That's the definition of Oxford Dictionary. So what it means, feeling sometimes matter more than fact. That's the kind of definition of post-truth. And why it occurs. Lee McIntyre wrote about the context of the post-truth phenomenon. I will read the yellow part. But the point is that this sort of the post-truth relationship to facts occurs only when we are seeking to assert something that is more important to us than the truth itself. Thus, post-truth amounts to a form of the ideological supremacy, whereby its practitioners are trying to compel someone to believe in something whether there is good evidence for it or not. Which means I don't care about whether it is a fact or not. What I care is it is advantage or not. That's quite important the attitude to the post-truth. So all the merging everything is why did this information matter? There is no such a thing as fake news from a journalist perspective because news must be based on facts. So there is no fake news actually. It's a wrong word. And furthermore, media journalism seeking truth and justice for a peaceful society. So when we use the framing, like the term fake news means there is a real news and there is a fake news. We are trying to get used to those frames, so we don't use that term. So I like the disinformation. And what I try to contribute today is fake news is a small part of post-truth phenomenon, which some people care only themselves or their advantages more than others, no matter what is fact or not, no matter truth or not, no matter justice or not. So the point is that truth and justice can be seen differently from one's perspective. And one's perspective is deeply connected to or formed by one's group identity or tradition, narrative, history, and so on. Therefore, all things come to a consequence that is a group identity as a fundamental element of conflict in these days. So that's why this information is important. As you know, white supremacy in the United States or UK on Brexit, they used a lot of disinformation to divide different groups. And then from a white American perspective, the color illegal immigrants ruined their country, something like that. So it's a big problem. So I tried to make this kind of diagram because in the ground, on the ground, post-truth, on the ground of post-truth, hate and discrimination, violence, disinformation, all together work together. In Korean history, there were disinformation too. For example, Jeju 4th, 3rd incidents, often called uprising and massacre. There are tragic tragedy, as you already know. Northwest Youth Association, who consists of Christian young people of the one big mega church in Korea, they believed Jeju people were communist. So the disinformation were played quite a big role. For instance, May 18 uprising. I'll make it short everything. At the time, the government tried to make Gwangju citizens as rioters, commanded by North Korea. So it's all connected to the things. And this framing and using this information still continues today. So this is what I contribute today. Have you heard about the Jongbuk K, which means Jongbuk is Jongbuk means following communist or communist, something like that. And then gay means gay means the homosexual people who LGBTQ, something like that. And then they try to make the new term like a combination of two words, which is quite unfamiliar, and I think it's disinterested. But what is the combination of two words means in a political situation in Korea? Normally, far-right movements, they gather for the two kind of goals, like anti-communism and anti-homosexuality, and people gathered for these things. So two things are quite different in quality, but they use the same term. And then they get together and then they talk about all things and hate speeches and things like that. And have you heard about the Taegukgi rallies? It happened in 2016, something like that, when the President Park Geun-hye was came down. At the time, to save, to protect former President Park Geun-hye, people gathered, and then the thing is, the Christian groups were a big portion of the rallies, and then they tried to use shake the Korean national flags with the cross, because they believed their rallies are very important for their country, their countries. So far right groups joined the rally groups, something like that. So I tried to show 3 cases, but there is no time, especially already 20 minutes. So I just a brief introduction. First case was As the Prayer Movement, which was the Korean journalism, 한겨레, has pointed out EPM as the factory of the fake news, analyzing over 10 YouTube channels and over 50 KakaoTalk chat rooms in 2018. And then all things they analyzed, and then the contents are mostly like Islamic phobia, homophobia, North Korea and security issues, social slander like anti-politicians and spiritual warfare, things like that. And then they use disinformation or fake news. So it's a quite interesting story, but I will skip it. And the second case was Jeon Kwang-un controversies. He's a South Korean pastor and former president of the Christian Council of Korea, and new right politician, and a member of a Christian Liberty Unification Party. It's a very small, minor party, but actually they try to make their position in the parliament. Anyway, Jeon Kwang-un, he commonly used the term like homophobia and anti-communism in the Taegukgi rallies. So it's quite interesting. And he's a kind of in a bad way rock star right now in Korea. Many Christians are following and going to the rallies and worship services. And he actually gathered Gwanghwamun rallies during the COVID-19 social distance period. And then it resulted more than 300 confirmed cases. So he went to the jail, violating the health the law. Anyway, still he's very influential in Korean society, using the disinformation case. And third case is quite important, I think, personally, because CTS FEBC owned by and organized, operated by the Christian groups. It's a Christian media groups. And these groups are produced the TV show debating on the anti-discrimination law, which is quite important issue in Korea. And then Korea Communication Commission make the decision on two channels about their violation of the regulation of fairness and objectivity, because they only gathered one-side panels, and then they tried to use misinformation, disinformation, and try to stop making the anti-discrimination law. Which is why it is important is the CTS and FEBC is the not personal YouTube channel. This is the institution, like a broadcasting institution. So as a media, they have to follow the media ethics code. But I think they feel the anti-communism or anti-discrimination is more important than the fact or fairness. So I think it's a quite symbolic phenomenon of the Korean context. So why this information matters? I think this information has an intention and that it has a consequence. It incites conflicts in the public sphere, threatening harmony. And we found in those examples in Korean history, but also in until today. These days, unfortunately, Korean churches seem vulnerable to the disinformation battle, even stigmatized as a factory of fake news. The contents are regarding to hate and discrimination, such as homophobia and anti-communism, which is quite opposite to Jesus' teaching to love one another. That's why we need to think about that more. Thank you. Sorry for the time.